I hope you don't see all the junk that's in back of me. No, okay.
Can't see a thing.
Well, that's good. Although it will be normal for any of my students.
The light is blinking. I don't know if he's going to have this on or not, sister. He's going to throw this in the middle someplace.
Oh, I see.
Ready to go on 5?
I guess we're all set to go on 5. Good evening, people on Channel 21, Hometown Cable. My name is Bob Venn, and sitting next to me is Sister Leona Stacy, one of the daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus here at St. Mary's Academy. We're very fortunate to have this short interview tonight with Sister, who I'm sorry to say will be leaving our village after over 22 years of teaching many students here. Sister is going to talk to us and tell us about her background and some of her teaching experiences and some of the things that's been very important to her over the years. Calvin Castine is on the camera, and he's asked me to narrate this with Sister. So we'll start right off, Sister. Can you tell us about your background, something about where you were born, your raised, and your early years?
I was born in Barre, Vermont, in 1923.
Oh, I didn't think you would tell us that, too.
My father was sick and was in the hospital, and I went to Newport, Vermont. Not Newport, but I went to Derby to live with an aunt for a while. And then when my father died, I went to Newport, Vermont. And there my mother had to work. And I decided that I wanted to be a boarder at Sacred Heart. And so I went up there, and that's where I really was a boarder from the 5th grade on to the high school. I graduated from there. I was also baptized in the 5th grade, as I was not a Catholic at the time. And I enjoyed being with the sisters, and many of my teachers were the influence for my entering the convent life.
And so did you graduate from high school then at Newport?
Yes, I did.
And so then you were about 18 or 19 years old?
Right.
And then you went where for your novitiate, I think it's called?
Yes, I went to Sherbrooke.
In Canada?
In Canada, and of course it was very difficult for me because I'm not French, and everything was in French, and I had a very hard time to understand. I don't know how I persevered, tell you the truth. And so after that, I entered in 1945, and I made my first vows in 1947. And I came back to Newport to teach, but I was teaching music for 6 years.
At Newport?
Newport, Sacred Heart. And then I came to Champlain in 1949 and 50, where I gave individual music lessons, piano lessons. I also had a couple students from the public school, and one was Mary Boillard. And I had the students from St. Mary's. Most of the time during the day, I could take them 15, 20 minutes during the day at the time.
You did this in the convent building?
In the convent building.
Which was right in front of our present building here.
That's right.
Right?
Right. And then I had also the Glee Club. And I will say one thing, that I had a very hard time because I was rather young, and I didn't have too much discipline. And we had what we call the club room downstairs, and there was an extra door going out, and some of the students would come in and go out. And I would talk to Sister Mary Amelia, who was the principal at the time, and she said, well, it's your discipline, you do what you can. But I couldn't really discipline the high school students. And when I would be teaching in there also, I had piano lessons sometimes, and the boys who were at basketball, would come in for their showers. And at the same time, they would throw their shoes over and hit me on the head while I was teaching. I didn't like that too well. So
we should name some of those, but we won't.
No,
We won't.
no. But and so I taught until 1950, and then I left 1950. I made my final vows in 1950. And then I went back to Newport for, I believe it's 20 years.
Sister, if I can interrupt you right here.
Yes.
I hear of final vows often. Is there any length of time between your first and your final vows that's
6 years.
6 years? Now, you indicate here only 3. Is that, I mean, am I 47 and 50?
All right. And when I made my vows, it was 3 years.
3 years, okay.
That's right. But it's extended now, I think.
So in these 3 years between your first and your final vows, if you don't like it, you can get out? Is that
Yes.
the idea? You make your final, you are married to it?
Yes.
Okay?
That's
All right.
right.
Now, you didn't mention earlier any brothers or sisters?
No, I'm an only child.
You're an only child,
Right.
okay. So now I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
That's
wanted to just clarify that in my own mind. At this time when you were here in 1949 and 50, there were people boarding here,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And was it part of your job to take care of some of those boarders?
That's right.
To tell us about some of those, maybe? Something about how hard that was after teaching all day?
When you're teaching all day and then you have to supervise after supper, and then they have study period, and then they go to bed. And you get them up early in the morning to go to Mass, and then you're with them most of the time.
I noticed you said they go to bed. You're not necessarily to sleep.
Yes.
Did they go to sleep right away when they went to
Well, no. No, it was quite a while.
How many
for
boarders
some of
did you
them.
have at that time? Approximately, you
I
remember?
really don't know. Here in Champlain,
In
I
Champlain,
don't know.
okay. Do you remember how many sisters there were here then, approximately? We had over 20?
Well, it's between 30 and 40.
30 and 40 sisters here at that
Between
time?
it.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know how many,
I realize.
but it's something in that line.
Okay, we're back to 1950, 51, and you went to Morrisonville. Is that when you went back to Newport, you said, for 20
No,
years?
I went to Newport.
Newport for
Right.
20 years. And what grade did you teach there?
Well, I took Sister Amy's place, Sister Amy that was here, because she was moved to Newport for a while. And she became sick. And I was at music, and so they took me away from music to teach the classroom for her. And I thought it was just temporary, but then I got so that I liked it, and they wanted me, and they asked me if I would be willing to continue, and I said yes. And so that's, I enjoyed teaching all 5th grade. I went up to the 6th grade, then I had a double grade, 7th and 8th grade, and that's where I had Sister Mary Ann Gore.
Sister Mary Ann Gore was one of your students, right?
That's right.
Yes, I have something about that. Go
I
ahead.
do have some of her artwork that I use as a model
That you've saved?
that I've saved.
She was
That's
a good
right.
student.
She was a very good student.
I have something here I want to find out if it's the truth.
Of course, my name before, we were not allowed to say our little name, and maybe I can mention this. My name was Sister Mary Presentation because I was baptized on that day, and it meant something to me to be called Sister Mary Presentation. And when I was in Newport, Ronnie Rivard is one of them, with his companions. We were I was in my classroom, and I used to correct my papers until 9, 10 o'clock or so. And all of a sudden, down below, I would hear, "Good night, Sister Mary Presentation, Leona, Stacy." And I knew who it was because, see, I had taught I had been in school with their parents.
And who was that again?
Ronnie Rivard.
Ronnie Rivard, who lives in Rouse's Point, New
Right.
York. And, okay.
And I wasn't allowed to say what my real name was, but they came out with it. They didn't say too much of it in the classroom, but they did mention that.
I think that was great. I thought that was a great thing, you know. I understand you had another local boy here, local now, Norm Bono, was also one of your students?
Oh, yes. He was very quiet, and he took the bus. We didn't see too much of him during the day or any other time.
Yeah.
I had his sisters also.
You did, the whole family, huh? I have something here that I had as a note. that Sister Marianne Gore, I saw one of her report cards recently. And in the first grade, as I recall seeing this, it said for deportment, which is the old one for how good you are in school, it gave her 100%. And her parents loved her mark, and when she got up to the 7th and 8th grade of Sister Leona, I think I also saw her 8th grade that said, what? Do you remember what it said?
Inclined to mischief.
Inclined to mischief. Has she changed over the years, Sister?
I wouldn't say too much.
Well, another thing that...
But, when you grow older and you're in with a group, sometimes you are inclined to do like them, and you don't really pinpoint one person. And if you give, and I never gave really 100 deportment to anybody, not at the beginning of the year anyway. And so therefore, I would say that she just got in with the whole group.
What would inclined to mischief be in percentile?
Talking and...
Yeah, but if you were to give her a percentage from the 100 she had in the first grade, could we give her a 70 maybe even?
Oh, no, I wouldn't put it down that
Not that
far.
low. Okay,
No.
good. I'm glad, because I was going to call Sister Marianne.
No. I think she would even have in the 90s.
She
but
would
no.
have. Excellent. Sister,
The only thing is that I don't give 100 or I give A plus or A's that frequently.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be almost perfect, and I haven't had any, I don't think.
you haven't had any?
No, not that.
Well, you've never had me when I was a student. That's why. Sister, I've been confused over the years. I've learned since the difference between the principal of the school and the mother superior, or the mother of the who's in charge of the order here at Champlain. The principal is not necessarily the person in charge of the sisters. Can you explain that maybe in a minute or so?
Well, the superior is the one who really takes care of our financial problems and our spiritual directions, getting us conferences, special conferences, to keep up our spirituality. And I don't know.
In this community, in other words, there would be
In this community.
Okay, so you would have to answer to her, so to speak. She's the boss?
Yes, and she's the one that makes the final decisions, but we all discuss together, and she's the one that puts the final answer to it.
Okay, but in school, the principal is the boss, even over
Yes.
that superior. Mother superior, if she were a teacher. The principal's
If
in charge
she were a
of...
teacher.
If she were a teacher.
That's
okay.
right.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, getting right along here, I've got some things that you've been covering very well. So you were at Newport for 20 years, and then you went on to Morrisonville,
Yes, that's right.
and you were there for...
I was there for 2 years, but because I was sick, I had to leave.
I heard you were principal there for a year. Did that help to make you sick?
I think so.
You
Yes.
think so?
Yes.
And is it also true that one of your teachers at Morrisonville was a lady by the name of Sister Elaine Voyer,
That's right.
who later was the principal here
And who became my superior.
became your superior
Right.
here, and then she went on to be the provincial now of the
Provincial,
complete
that's-
order, right,
that's
in the
right.
United States. And well thought of. Sister Elaine was on the parish council with me, and as a matter of fact, I used to always kid her that if she could bring her whole family over here for the bazaar, it's got to be a success. I think she's got 12 brothers and sisters.
Well, I think she's the 18th.
The 18th, excuse
There's
me,
18
sister.
in the family.
18 in the family. That's what I meant. She made our bazaar a success.
That's right.
If she could come. And, okay, so then you've been here now since 1970, I think you
That's
told
right,
me.
1970.
And your plans had been, I was told, to retire maybe next June, but they've been changed.
I would have liked to stay on much longer even then, but the circumstances, I realized that I had to hurry up and finish. But I thought I had one more year to go. And then I got fearful that probably I'd have to leave at Christmas, but at least I thought I would have a half a year to get a good head start. But circumstances just didn't give me that opportunity. And it's rushing me even now to get home because my mother is alone and she's very lonesome. And she can she can't really go down to see my father as she would like to go because she forgets and it's hard for her to drive.
And she is where, sister? Where will you?
Wells River, Vermont.
Where is Wells River?
Well, it's 20 miles from St. Johnsbury.
Okay.
North, I
That's
guess.
on the eastern part of Vermont? And right,
And it's 30 miles from Barrie. It's just on the Connecticut River,
right near New
right
Hampshire?
in New Hampshire.
Okay, so you'll be living there at home. Did you ever live in that house yourself previously?
Not until my mother got married the
Okay.
second time.
Okay. And some of your interests, we understand, a big interest is music, of course. And you've told us some of your music. And you also worked with our St. Mary's Church Choir here for years.
That's right.
You were director. Some good Christmas
Right.
programs.
Well, we did our best. We had few people with us, but we managed to do a good job. In fact, even though we were just a few, they thought we were a great big choir, and that was a consolation. to help.
Excellent. And you also taught music privately, you said.
I did private lessons.
Do you ever think of doing that in the future?
Yes, I
You
do.
You do think of that,
Yes.
huh? You teach piano?
Yes.
Anything else?
Well, I did teach violin.
Violin?
In fact, when I first came here to Champlain, I had Mary Lou Prevost as a violinist.
I heard you play violin. I did
But
hear that.
I am not that excellent, but I can always start them out.
As a matter of fact, I heard, now this is a rumor now, but I heard that you were thinking of starting a three-piece band. Had you not been leaving? Well, I'm going to just tell you what I heard. You were going to be the violinist. Father Susi was going to be the pianist because you had taught him piano or tried to. Is that correct?
Well, yes.
And the third person, you didn't have it, and that's one of the reasons why you didn't start this little band.
No, I had no intention
You
of
had no
starting
intention.
a band, no.
I've heard the piano a couple of times. I thought when I went by the rectory down there, I didn't know what it was.
I was quite disappointed that Father didn't continue his lessons.
I think you started playing golf.
For the simple reason that he was doing very well.
Was he?
But he didn't have the patience to practice. Sorry about that.
Okay, Father. Sorry to bring that up, Father, but it's a fact. Another thing very close, very, very close to your heart is the missions.
That's right.
And I understand you're very interested in the mission sisters in Africa, some from your order and others. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Well, I think that Sister St. Rita Brassard was one of my great friends. We used to enjoy life together in the convent. And when she left, it was kind of hard for us to take. And we used to make jokes with her and so forth. And she, when she got there, she sent us names as pen pals. And I still write to the same one that I've written to for at least 30, 40 years.
That's great,
No.
sister.
And I really enjoy, and because of her, I have tried to help the missions as much as possible. When I came to Champlain, well, Rita LaBombard had already started because of Sister Mary Joseph and that. And so I gave her a lift as much as possible, although I couldn't be there all the time because I was teaching. But I think we had support. And I did a lot of gathering of clothes and things that would be of interest to the missions. And whenever I could sell articles or something to get some money, I would send them little gifts that I knew would be useful to them. And we did have 5 sisters that came over not long ago to study at college. They had a grant.
They were from where?
They were from Africa.
From Africa. African sisters?
Yes. And I got acquainted with them. Of course, they knew me through Sister St. Rita, and we became very close. And I was able to, I asked them if they needed whatever they needed, if I could get it for them. And little things, not necessary, absolutely necessary, but to make their life happy. And I tried to do as much as I could to give them little gifts and things.
You mentioned Sister Rita and teaching with, that was in Newport?
Yes.
And I think we should mention that she's a native of the Moores Fork
She
area, right?
certainly is,
And
yes.
her family is still
That's-
in this area.
Yes.
And we like to...
Beverly Lamberton is her niece that works at the telephone office here.
Okay.
And she has other nieces.
And she is still in Africa now?
Oh, yes,
Sister
she
Rita
is.
Yes.
Yes, she's supposed to be coming home because she has not felt well.
And I understand that you also encourage the students to help the missions you here at school very much.
Yes, that's one of our religion projects that we try to be charitable, and we did a lot more praying because I know that money is not the only thing for the missions, and we do a lot of praying for them, and whatever we can.
Praying helps a lot, sister. No
It
question.
certainly does.
Did you pray much about this meeting we're having right here now?
No,
No. Okay. It's not as bad as you might have anticipated.
no, not quite.
Very good. Sister, I'm going to hit you now maybe with some of your experiences that's going to be a little more difficult over the years. You're talking of 40-some-odd years, but we'll try to keep it to the last 20 when you were here, 22 in Champlain. Any of your experience that you can remember that you probably will never forget about local people here that you could fill us in on? Anything at all? That's tough.
Well, I enjoyed the little group of choir members that I had. I had the 5th grade up to the 8th grade as choir members, and that was in the time of Father McCaslin, and he promised the children a picnic at the end of the year, so we always had a picnic at the end of the year. And I had quite a few in that group. We had boarders, and we had, Lucy Manette and her sister, and some of the other people here in Champlain. And of course, as I said before, when I was teaching, the students would come in one door and go out the other. And I taught them what we call Studla Pupa.
Say that again?
Studla Pumpa. And that was, we rehearsed that so many times that I think they went around the halls singing it. And I do remember some of the experiences that I had when I was up in the 6th grade, up near we had the roof was
Oh, yes.
open.
Next to over the top of the gym.
Right, and I had some boys that I had, I can't think of their name now. I know I had the Castines over here near the other side of the church.
Donald,
Yes.
children.
And the boys came up to play basketball, and I would always be upstairs, and I thought it was all right, but my superior told me that I had to be downstairs supervising them if they were there, so I had to go down, and instead of when they were finished, they came upstairs in the classroom, and of course we have a window there, and they went out on the roof, and we would watch the stars because we were studying the stars.
Do you remember that?
So we did have
good memory, sister.
Yeah,
good
that
memories.
was Kyle Castine and Kirk and Trombley, and the one that married Neela's sister.
Oh, yes. I should know of all people. Danny. Danny, yes.
Right.
And sister, the time you're talking about, 1949 and 50, this nice recreation field you have here wasn't there then.
Oh, no,
that was
it
a
was
swamp.
a swamp.
You want to believe it.
We
Where did
couldn't
the
go
kids
that
play?
way.
You just had a little tiny area, correct?
We
Hardly anything at all back there at all.
we didn't play out
You didn't
here.
play at all
No,
in the back.
we played in the front.
In the front.
And still, I don't think they played. I think
Yeah.
they played in the gym most of the time.
That was done while you were in Newport, between
And we
50.
even had the gully down here.
You played down in there in the
Well,
gully?
we didn't play in the gully, but
Yeah.
you couldn't go too far.
Yes,
from
that's
there.
right. That was running down
That's the area that they played, but the
Yes.
length that they had there.
What a great change they had when that was done, when the thruway was built. That was done.
I was disappointed because I couldn't take the shortcut to church.
At that time?
We had to go
Oh, yeah.
2 by 2, and
Yeah.
we had our garb, and we had to walk around.
If
in
you couldn't
Spruce
be
Street.
alone then, you couldn't walk alone, couldn't go anywhere alone, right?
No.
That
No,
has
you
changed
couldn't
over
even
the
get
years.
in the car with a man either.
Yes, that's
If
changed
they
over the years.
stopped to ask you for a ride, you had to say no.
You couldn't visit a home individually, right? Even
No.
if my wife and I invited you, you
Not
couldn't go
unless
then?
it was very serious.
Mhm.
If it was somebody dying.
But
or-
not for a dinner, like I
No.
invite you up for a dinner.
No.
You couldn't do that.
No.
Uh, some of the other things here, your former students, you talked about Sister Mary Ann Gore. Now, you've made some very good friends, and I know that people that are very close to you here, and I have a few listed, Oral and Marilyn Parsons.
Right.
They're friends with all of the, some of the sisters here.
They've been a very good support in everything that we do, and if there's anything I can do for you, sister, just let me know. That is a consolation and security, and I remember being alone in the convent, and Oral will call me and say, now, if there's anything that you need, and if there's anything that happens, just let me know. And he's there for my support.
Was he also teasing you like he has, I know, Sister Amy and Sister Elaine and Sister Mary Ann?
Oh, yes.
Does his share on you also?
Oh, yes. He kept track of my weight.
Yeah, your weight.
My weight.
Would you like to thank him in any way right now for any of this, sister?
Well, he's still doing it.
He's still doing it, okay. I also noted Helen Babby.
Well, Helen Babby was the kitchen help that we had when I was here in 1949-50. And I had her, I think it's her niece, Betty Favreau, and we would always be playing Old Black Joe. And she teased her about it and teased me. And she would come in and talk to me whenever I had a few moments. So we've been friends ever since. We're very close. And
Donna Giroux down near the church.
And Donna is also, I've had her 3 children, and been down there frequently.
Mm-hmm.
I also had and started Ronnie Buskey in music, and he is really doing a fine job and sings very well. Of course, you know what he does.
Sure does, sister.
But he learned a lot.
Too.
He did a lot on his own. When I had him, he worked very hard.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 6th grade, he is also the one that played for The Wizard of Oz piano for the play that we had.
I didn't know he played piano in addition to singing.
Oh, yes.
He does, huh?
Oh, yes. He plays organ, too.
Is that right? I didn't know that. He's an excellent student. I know.
Yes,
I
and
watched
he's now
his
in
marks.
California.
Yes, I watched his marks as he went through college.
Oh, yes.
Rita Bombard, you've already mentioned, very close with the
Yes.
mission, and very, very close
Mm-hmm.
with her.
And I'm still working because I'm making the list for the barrels to go out in November 4th.
Okay, let's just take a short break, sister, in case you have some more to talk about, give you a chance to get your lips wet again or something. And we'll just take a short break.
Thank you.
That break was good, sister. Give you a
Yes,
chance
it was.
to rest a little bit. And we're going to try to cover some of your teaching now, and wondering, for instance, how has teaching changed over the years that you can tell us about.
Well, I think that has been a little bit difficult in just these years, because I think that television has been a domineering factor in the children's lives. At least I feel that. Maybe it isn't, but they seem to be a little sleepy and dreamy, and it seems as though I'm on TV and they can get up and walk around, and they don't study as well, and they don't, because I have given them a test, and the first test has been a fiasco, and I give them the same, or not the same test, but the same material test, and I have told them that they had maybe a low mark or something like that, and the next one they come up to 80s and 90s. So it really means that they can study if they want to, but they don't. It's very, very difficult. And when they come in with no homework done, and I have the habit of correcting together quite a bit, because I feel that that's my way of also teaching, and the mistakes that some people make, I stress with the others, and I think it helps. It's a lesson in itself. And whatever I correct from everybody, I tell them that it's not, it's an educational correction.
Is this a bigger problem now, you think, than it was 20 years ago?
Yes, it is.
It is?
Yes, I find it that
Let me
way.
ask you something. Are you discouraged by this?
Sometimes I do get discouraged, and I feel, though, that every once in a while I have support and the encouragement of many parents. That the children of going up to the high school have come out with flying colors, and they're doing fine, and they understand better because they worked harder. They always complain because Sister Leona gave them so much homework, and now I get, boy, do we have homework up there. And I said, you mean Sister Leona's not the only one that gives you homework? And then they have to smile and say, no, we get a lot more up there.
We're very proud of our school,
So,
Sister,
yes.
all the parishioners and our people. And I have talked to parents who told me the kids have left here and gone to the public schools and have done very, very well when they got there. They found themselves very, very well. We don't have as much here in those first few grades as far as equipment, but we do have the dedication, and we do have the atmosphere, I think, that the children have here. And if they don't learn a lot of religion, I always felt that they have the atmosphere for it.
I think that here, not only the subject matter, at least that I put in my religion with it as far as teaching them or explaining to them how to be polite and how to act. And I've always had compliments whenever we go out with my pupils. And even this year, Lisa took them to Miners for their field day, and they happened to be the best school there, the best behaved school there. We go to Guggenheim in June, and we are 3 schools. We have Morrisonville, Peru, and others, and we still get compliments on our own students.
Don't know if you kids, you parents out there know this, but that's a great compliment to Sister, to St. Mary's, and to your children. And Sister, when you have meetings with other sisters who also teach the 5th and the 6th grade, is it what you tell us about there being interests in TV? Is this only here at St. Mary's?
No, it's all over.
It's all over, huh?
And when we get together at certain meetings or anything like that, it's the same all over. They have the same remarks that I have or any of the others have.
Now, you want a tough question.
It's not.
How do you think we can change this? How can we turn this around? If either as a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, how could possibly we turn this around? Can it be turned around?
I really don't know. I think the children need a lot of encouragement, and they need the interest of an adult, and whether it's a parent, whether it's a teacher, or whoever it might be. I think they need this push. I think they need encouragement, not just once in a great while, but I think that they need it often.
Didn't mean to get into philosophy here, you know, but your feeling, but it really is very important that you do get the students back. They don't read as much as they used to, Sister?
No, they don't.
Vocabulary?
Vocabulary is very, very poor, very poor. And I guess through my own experience, my vocabulary, when I went to college, I was very limited in my vocabulary, and I thought, sure, I wouldn't make it. And I worked hard at it. And I said, when I start to teach school, I'm going to definitely push on the vocabulary line because they don't read enough. And when they make compositions or book reports and term papers, you have to have synonyms for the same word, not always repeat the same word. And so I tried to instill that in the children, but I don't think it goes very well.
There are books that they
don't.
have or should have that could help them with that very easy. A dictionary will do it, right?
Yes. Well, we have the synonym and antonym dictionary
Right.
that I require each year, but that can stay with them. I've had mine for over 25 years, and it's still good, and I use it.
All right, a couple of things. When you first started back in the 40s, you had how many in some of your classes?
In Newport, the first group, I think I had about 60, And I was on a platform, and they were right beside my desk. I think they were right all in the front. I didn't have a front. They were all there. But we did have these seats that you get 2 by 2, like a bench
Yes.
at the time. So it did have a little bit more space.
And what grade was that? Was that
That was a 5th grade.
a 5th grade, and you had 60. And then that has decreased over the years?
It decreased over the years, that's right. And then I had a 7th and 8th grade, and in the 7th and 8th grade, I think I had 20 in one and 20 in the other of 7th and 8th grade.
When you have 60 children, you have to have attention.
That's right. Well, it wasn't too bad then. It didn't.
There was
it
more
isn't
respect
the
for
way-
authority?
Yes.
And today you have how many in your 6th grade class?
I have 13.
13. And you said some of the reasons for that.
Well, I would say the Harris people
closing,
moving and some people moving out of town. That I don't think that their reasons is because they're dissatisfied with St. Mary's.
I can assure you it's not that. Our church isn't as people aren't going to church as much as they did in the religious
No.
thing. They're Catholics, and I think as a result of that, they don't think that Catholic education is as important as it used to be. I went to the Catholic school until I was in the 6th grade. I guess I had that, and I used to help to wax the floor with a sock on my shoe. You remember ever having that?
Oh, yes.
We stood next to our desk and we did our own little section, and we didn't even know that sisters had hair in those years because they listen, it had to come down at OLVA in Plattsburgh. It had to come down, and I remember one time there was a little bit of hair sticking out in one year, and I said, "That sister has hair," and I thought you wore those because they cut all your hair off, sister.
Well, I guess some of the students think that we're not, like they didn't think we eat and they didn't think we slept and didn't. Now it's different because there's a lot of change.
Of course. In Champlain, you're part of our village, you're part of our community, in addition to your own community, sister. And over the years, we had as many as 30 and 40, you said, back in the 40s and the 50s, and now, after you leave, there's going to be 3, and one of those is retired. Right? Be 2 active sisters. And your whole order is like that, I understand? Your order has decreased?
Decreased quite a bit. And we have many retired sisters 6 sisters, I might say. We have an infirmary, and they've had to rebuild an addition to it because in the United States we're quite a few over 65 and going to be retired soon, and they have no place for us.
Are there many new ones coming in your order right now?
We do have one girl that's I don't know how old she is, but she's more than 18. She's also a registered nurse, I think, and she's in Littleton working.
My understanding is also over the last few years that the sisters can say whether they'd like to work in a hospital, in a nursing home. It can go out into a private job, right, and still live in the community, and you have your choice. And back in 1950, when you were sent, quote unquote, back to Newport to relieve Sister Amy, and you said that you might have wanted to come back. Could you have come back had you wanted, or were you told more to do that?
At that time, we had our orders.
Yeah. Today, you have your choice pretty well,
Today
right?
is a little bit different.
A little bit better for
That's
you,
right.
yes.
Right.
And if one of your students came up to you and said, "Sister, I'm thinking of being a teacher," not necessarily a Catholic, a sister or a nun, but a teacher, whatever. What would you say to that person? Would you recommend it?
Well, yes, I would, because I think that we need teachers to help students in order to get good jobs and a good Catholic education, and very, very helpful to.
Could you give her any advice? It's going to be tough. You tell her it's going to be tough. Nothing's easy, right, in teaching.
Well, that's true.
Rewarding.
Sometimes.
I think I'd have problems, sister, with a student who was a 90 student who only did 80 work.
That's
Would be
right.
very discouraging to me.
Yes, it is. It is.
more so than a person who's 70 gets a 70. I think don't work to their,
But
to
I
their,
think that if you want to teach, you really have to want to help other people and just have your whole heart into it and do the best that you can with it.
How has education in general changed since you started? Would you say have we covered that pretty well, or you mentioned the children not as attentive, not...
Well, I don't know, but I think that we don't have too much time to get in all of our subjects, and sometimes it's very hard to even get in some subjects each day. You can't get them all in one day, and I would like very much to give the children a lift in French, because I had a hard time myself, and I learned more by writing it. And I did start to learn French in the 5th grade, right up through. And I learned more how to write it, and I listened to the sisters talking, and I could understand, but I could not talk. When I entered the community, I could not talk. I had a hard time even understanding some of their words. Je voudrais bien aider celles que tous les enfants pour leur donner autant que je pouvais.
I can't speak very well either. I have trouble. I have to translate each word. I understood a little bit what you said, that you were basically saying what you had just said, I think, that you'd like to help children. And first time I've heard you speak French, sister. And I can understand that going up to when you were in novitiate and you had to learn in French and you couldn't speak it, it must have been very tough.
Oh, very. I really wonder how come I persevered. But I guess it's the grace of God.
Cover just a little bit different. This is out of your area, maybe, but preschool. St. Mary's has a preschool this year for the first time, and I understand it's full, right?
Right.
And it's not just a babysitting; it's a preschool. What's your feeling on this?
I think it's wonderful because they get a chance to join in with other children. You take some of the children that are alone in the family. I know I would have enjoyed it if I had been in that case. They didn't have them at the time I went to school. So I think that they are able to get along with other people, share their toys, and they don't cry when somebody comes to take away a toy or something. And I do remember some in the kindergarten once upon a time that they couldn't share their toy, and they would cry and scream and so forth. And they had a very hard time adjusting to kindergarten.
Let me tell you something. If we're on the subject of preschool, get into kindergarten, we have one of the finest kindergarten teachers here that can control those children. Rita, I don't know how you do it. She's brought the children up to my house to show them the video that I've taken of them in church or some thing, and they come in, 30 of them, 25 and 30, sat on my floor up there in the garage where we have a patio, and we show them this, and not a sound, and she just put her hand like that, and it was done. They brought their lunch. When they were finished their lunch, they picked up their paper like grown-ups, better than some grown-ups. And I just think she does a terrific job.
Well, their entertainment that she gives is very wonderful.
She sure does when she has her programs. It's great, and we thank her very much for that. Your spare time, knitting and crocheting, I hear.
Well, it is a spare time. It's a change from correcting, because sometimes when you correct, your eyes go that way. It's just a little sideline. Some of the things I can make for the bazaar. Sometimes I just make it for friends or for my parents. I have done quite a few, made quite a few slippers to give out as gifts for, sometimes for the faculty and sometimes for friends.
I've heard that they sometimes for needy families in addition to friends.
Yes.
And that's very nice, sister. That also, I understand that you have a tendency to save. I'm a saver, but you tend to keep older things that are close to you, and that you like to keep some of your papers, your art, and so forth.
I have a lot of art that I have kept from, but I've asked the students if they would be willing to contribute, because I've had some up on the board, so they're pretty proud to think that theirs would be as a sample. And I do keep some compositions as a to be able to help the other students to write compositions, because I can't make the compositions and show the mistakes that shouldn't be, and I use the others. It's a constructive criticism, in other words. And I also keep their poems to help the teaching.
What'll happen to those when you leave next week?
Well, God knows where they are right now.
You don't know where they are right now.
I'm cleaning, and
They aren't necessarily
a lot
gonna
of them are thrown out,
Are
I
going to
guess.
be finally after years and years, huh?
Well, I don't think that the following teacher would appreciate having them. Then it's not the same thing.
When you talk about the following teacher, who is to succeed you here?
Kathy Blondo.
Kathy
Mrs. Kathy
Blondo will be the teacher here.
And I think she has been with me this week, and I think she's fantastic.
Is she a local here? She's local?
No, she's from...
The name Blondo
not
here
sure.
is local.
No.
She's not from here, huh?
Um,
Moore's in Scioto, Calvin
no, it's more further over.
says? So she'll be
Altona.
Altona area?
Got it,
And
Altona.
so she's taking over your class? And
Yes.
we
Yes.
hope to see you back when they graduate in the sixth.
Well,
you
I hope to
get
come
back.
back.
Huh? See that?
I may not come back then. I don't know. It depends on what happens at home.
Sister, St. Mary's Bazaar, we're in our 23rd year, and that's just about the time you came, I guess,
Yes.
the year after.
Yeah.
Sister Mary Jo, idea, has worked for years. You've been down there helping us, and you prepare all the money for the booths and all the other work you do, and
I worked out on the fields before, but I can't take the sun. It's
I'm
too
with you.
much.
I'm with you, sister. And counting the money, you're down there every year helping me. I'm down in the rectory, and
I hope to continue.
next year, you think you might come back and help us?
I hope to.
Look forward to that,
I
sister,
want
very
to.
much.
I want to.
I also remember, didn't have this before, but I remember, didn't your class win a first place for
One time they did.
They
but
did
I don't
for
remember what year.
for floats, right, in the parade? Yep, that's great.
Yes, they did.
And we might see you then in next May.
I hope to.
Well, terrific,
Right.
sister. That would be great. And as we mentioned, we're talking to Sister Leona Stacy. Her last day here at St. Mary's will be Friday, October the 19th. And she'll be retiring, quote unquote, over to Vermont, where she'll be living with her mother in Wells River, Vermont, near the New Hampshire border on the Connecticut River. This Sunday, October 21st, I guess that's tomorrow if you're listening, that's going to be shown on Saturday night, I understand, the 20th. I'm going to be out of town, sister. We're leaving the 19th for a wedding in Massachusetts, and we won't be here for this function, and I'm very sorry for that. But I've enjoyed being here with you tonight. There'll be a 10:30 Mass tomorrow morning on Sunday the 21st in honor of Sister. It's not a special Mass because we're there every Sunday at 10:30, but we're devoting this Mass to Sister. The children will be doing the readings, the intentions, and the offertory procession. Her last day, as we say, in teaching will be this Friday. Before we close, I'd like to take another break to let Sister gather her thoughts for some final remarks. And we'll be right back. We're back again to close out this very special Hometown Cable program tonight in honor of Sister Leona Stacy, who's leaving us after 22 years here and over 40 years with the teaching with the order. And Sister's, I think, has been very relaxed. She doesn't know that I intended to ask her many other questions, such as sex questions. On sex education, I was going to ask her. But Sister, I decided not to do that because I figured that you might know more than I do about because you've learned this and how to teach it. So I decided we wouldn't get into that at all. And there's enough of that on TV anyway. But getting back now to the serious thing, Sister, I do thank you very much, and I'd like to give you a minute or so, or whatever you want, to make any final remarks on this your last week in Champlain.
I would like to say that it is one of the hardest things for me to do is to retire right now. It's giving up my career that I've had for at least 42 years. And, but while I was here in Champlain, I do want to say that I have enjoyed my community life with the sisters that I've been. I've had a wonderful group of sisters. And I also want to thank the parents for their support and their encouragement, because sometimes it has been very depressing, and with their remarks and their encouragement, it made me feel that God wanted me to continue teaching. And I also want to thank my friends who have given me a lot of support also. I plan on keeping you all in my prayers, and hoping to come back once in a while to visit and to help out if I can in the missions and the bazaar and so forth. I find that the people here, more than in any other place, have really worked together and made it successful here in Champlain. They've tried in other places and have not succeeded, and I think that the people of Champlain are just great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister. Your well-chosen words, and I've enjoyed tonight very much. And on behalf of Calvin and I and all the viewing public and all the people in the area who sent their children here, we'd like to thank you for the many years you've given to our children, the children of Champlain, Rogers Point, Chazy, Moores. Your work for our church, our school, our community, and all the families of our area. We wish you many, many years of good health and happiness in your retirement. We know you're not quite ready to retire, but circumstances in the family. And I commend you for thinking so much of your family to do this, because many of us have not. We hope that your mother and father improve and come back and see us often. You promised you will. We'll miss you. Thanks for agreeing to come on Hometown Cable with us tonight.
I hope that everybody is going to be able to give me that support and prayer, because I'm going to need it very much to take care of my...
I'm sure the people out there will have their prayers for you, sister. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, Sunday the 21st, 10:30, is the Mass. And then I forgot also, following that, at 11:30 till 3, there's an open house at the Knights of Columbus building in Champlain, New York, where you can meet Sister again, talk to Sister, wish her your best, and gather with her friends, former students, and relatives, and make as many people as possible be there. And this is Bob Van on Hometown Cable. I want to thank Calvin for asking me to do this and for the opportunity to sit down with this tete-a-tete with Sister Leona Stacy. And good night, everybody.